Good morning, everyone. It's Monday, November 7 here in Manila. I'm Karen Davila giving you the head start for the day. Our guest for Hot Copy today. Is it time for the Philippines to consider nuclear energy? What's the importance of the Paris Climate Change Agreement? We have with us, straight from Switzerland, nuclear energy expert, eco-modernist Urs Bolt. He's with us this morning in an exclusive live interview. What's the energy situation in the country? And will nuclear energy give the Philippines what it needs? But first, the headlines this morning.
We're glad that this matter is resolved.
Suto sa Filipino nation to because common sense will tell us na hindi talaga lalaban to.
The mere fact that Floyd Mayweather Jr. appeared at ringside was more than enough to whet every fan's appetite of a possible rematch.
Today's big stories: the FBI clears Hillary Clinton in its latest review on her email controversy. Cops involved in the alleged shootout in Albuera, Mayor Ronaldo Espinosa placed under restrictive custody. And top-rank promoter Bob Arum shoots down a possible Pacquiao-Mayweather rematch. Hillary Clinton hurdles the email controversy hounding her U.S. presidential campaign. The FBI says the Democratic candidate won't face criminal charges over the issue. This report.
FBI Director James Comey sent a letter to lawmakers on Sunday that his agency has not changed its opinion that Hillary Clinton should not face criminal charges.
We're glad to see that that he has found, as we were confident that he would, that he has confirmed the conclusions that he really reached in July, and we're glad that this matter is resolved.
The announcement comes after a review of new emails discovered in a separate investigation of Anthony Weiner. The announcement of that review became a bombshell 11 days before the election. Even earlier Sunday, Donald Trump and his surrogates were doubling down on attempts to brand his opponent as some kind of criminal over her private email server.
If she were to win, it would create an unprecedented constitutional crisis.
We have drifted into an environment where if Hillary is elected, the criminal investigations will be endless.
Meanwhile, on the campaign trail, Hillary Clinton made an appeal to African-American voters, stopping at a church in Philadelphia on Sunday.
This election, in many ways, is about what kind of future our country will have. Will it be dark and divisive, calling up the specters of our past? Or will it be hopeful and inclusive and united?
Trump, meanwhile, is leaning heavily on his family, his daughter Ivanka meeting with a small group in New Hampshire on Sunday, and his running mate getting voters riled up in Panama City, Florida.
We are just 2 days away from a great victory all across the state of Florida and all across the United States of America.
I'm Andrew Spencer reporting.
Now in other news, the body of slain Mayor Ronaldo Espinosa has been brought to his home in Albuera, Leyte. That's as the family seeks the help of the NBI and the Commission on Human Rights to investigate Espinosa's death. Cory Quintos reports.
Relatives, friends, and residents were on hand as the body of Albuera Mayor Rolando Espinosa was brought back to his home in Barangay Binolho. They recall the goodness of the mayor towards the poor and constituents in need.
Yung nasa hospital ang anak ko, financial, hindi naman siya mahirap lapitan.
Kada Pasko, meron kaming pamasko sa kanila, tag 2 kilong baboy, 2 kilong pansit, at saka po loaf na yung sliced bread.
The body of the slain mayor underwent an autopsy Sunday morning. The family's lawyer says initial results show Espinosa sustained 4 gunshot wounds, but only 3 bullets were recovered from the body. She adds Espinosa sustained an injury to his head, and it's possible he was lying down when he was shot.
Slugs, it will be submitted by Dr. Lara dun sa Crime Laboratory 8 for ballistics.
Nawalan din daw ng singsing?
Kasi the last time na nag-visit ako sa kanya,
May suot siyang singsing eh.
The Espinosa family seeking the help of the NBI and the Commission on Human Rights in probing the killing. Albuera residents also have many questions on the incident.
Totoong nag-serve ng warrant of arrest, hindi dapat sa ganong oras dahil nandyan naman siya nakakulong na. Nagtataka namin kung bakit madaling araw.
Hindi naman siguro manlalaban yung tao kasi nasa loob na nga siya ng kulungan eh. Pasok pa lang sa loob, wala ka ng mga armas.
For now, the family is choosing to remain silent as they ask everyone to give them time to mourn. Cory Quintos, ABS-CBN News, Albuera, Leyte.
Now, the Criminal Investigation and Detection Group is conducting its own probe into Mayor Espinosa's death, saying the operation against the alleged narco politician appears questionable. Jeff Canoy has more.
Police operatives involved in the alleged encounter with Albuera Mayor Rolando Espinosa and his prison mate Raul Yap at the Baybay Sub-Provincial Jail are now under restrictive custody at the CIDG Region 8 office, while the PNP conducts its investigation. The team insists they were merely serving a search warrant because the two were selling illegal drugs behind bars. They also maintain Espinosa and as they are investigating several questionable moves of the CIDG. First, he was not informed, nor was the Leyte provincial director of the operation. Second, the CIDG team did not coordinate with the chief of the Baybay City PNP. He says they merely left a document with a desk officer of the station when local police should have been involved in the operation. Third, they are looking at why the raid had to be conducted at 4 in the morning when Espinosa was merely in his cell. Fourth, why the jail warden and guards were asked to leave the area. And fifth, the disappearance of the relevant CCTV footage. Meanwhile, from Las Vegas, where he watched the Pacquiao-Vargas fight, National Police Chief Ronald De La Rosa extended his condolences to Espinosa's family. De La Rosa had earlier ordered parallel investigations by the PNP Regional Office 8, the CIDG at Camp Crame, and the PNP Internal Affairs Service. Jeff Canoy, ABS-CBN News, Albuera, Leyte.
CIDG Region 8 Chief Marvin Marcos defends their operation that led to Espinosa's death. There have been questions why a search warrant had to be served at 4 in the morning and for a person already in jail. But Marcos explains police announcing their raid would have compromised the raid.
Naging decision po ni Major Laraga kasi kailangan po ma-achieve yung element of surprise. Kailangan po masorpresa yung tao na ito may search warrant, hindi niya ini-expect na darating at magkakaroon ng search sa oras na yon. Tulad po nung shabu, yung baril, pag inanaw sa muna pupunta ka doon at meron kang search warrant sa ganitong tao sa gayang klaseng establishment, yung baril po may tatago na yan. Yung shabu pwede nang itapon. Hindi mo naabot, hindi mo na makikita yan. Kasi yung tao po alam po namin na hindi naman po alis doon.
Manny Pacquiao Floyd Mayweather 2 not going to happen. That's according to top-ranked promoter Bob Arum. But analysts disagree, especially after Pacquiao's recent victory where he showed that he remains a force inside the ring. Jackie Pascual reports.
For Pinoy fight fans, the Fighting Senators' return to the ring was one of the most highly anticipated boxing matches this year.
Impressive naman yung pagkapanalo niya.
The Pac-Man proved his naysayers wrong as he showed little rust while showcasing his speed and punching power against the much younger Vargas. For international boxing referee and judge Dan Rex Tapdasan and analyst Ed Tolentino, Pacquiao, though not as sharp as he used to be, has aged gracefully.
Yung youth, yung height and reach advantage ni Jesse Vargas was all neutralized by the speed of Manny Pacquiao.
We will never see the vintage Pacquiao. We will never see the old Pacquiao because a 37 Pacquiao is not a 27-year-old Manny Pacquiao. There is no turning back time. But the thing with Manny Pacquiao, even though he has depreciated, the depreciation has not been rock bottom. Let's say he's 70% of what he used to be. And that 70% is still more than enough to handle a limited guy like Jesse Vargas, who's still clearly lacking in experience.
Top-ranked boss Bab Arum has shut down the idea of a Manny Pacquiao-Floyd Mayweather rematch, saying they respect that the undefeated American is retired. Tolentino, however, believes it's still possible, saying that retirement is the most abused word in professional boxing.
The mere fact that Floyd Mayweather Jr. appeared at ringside was more than enough to whet every fan's appetite of a possible rematch. I think this fight is still within the realm of possibility.
But for Tapdasan, Pacquiao should face another boxer before challenging Mayweather.
If he beats Crawford, he still has it. He still has it. And then people will see that, okay, you can still fight Floyd Mayweather Jr. in a rematch.
When it comes to Nonito Donaire's loss, Tapdasan believes his strategy was well read by Jesse Magdaleno. As for Tolentino, a rematch would be the best way of settling the score instead of contesting the results.
Basang-basa ni Jesse Magdaleno kung saan pupunta si Nonito Donaire. In fact, yung left hook ni Nonito Donaire na money punch niya never landed.
A draw would have been acceptable, but it was tough to imagine Donaire winning the fight because I thought he was flat, the energy was missing, he was more standstill in that fight, there were no leg movements, and I thought he was just waiting to tee off, but waited too long.
On Hot Copy this morning, Pope Francis spoke of the importance of the Paris Agreement on climate change. The Pope said the agreement proves humanity has the ability to work together for the protection of creation and to put the economy at the service of people to build peace and justice. The 2015 Paris Agreement formally started November 4 after winning support from major greenhouse gas emitters led by China and the US.
2 giorni fa è entrato in vigore l'accordo di Parigi sul clima del pianeta. Questo importante passo avanti dimostra che l'umanità ha la capacità di collaborare per la salvaguardia del creato, per porre l'economia al servizio delle persone e per costruire la pace e la giustizia.
And joining us on Hot Copy this morning to discuss the impact of the Paris Agreement on climate change, the energy situation in the country, is nuclear energy expert Urs Bolt, straight from Switzerland. Thank you for coming to the show, Urs.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you to have me here. I'm really pleased to hopefully have an interesting talk with you this morning.
All right, let's start first with the Paris Climate Change Agreement. It started on November 4. The Philippines has not ratified it. How important is it that the Philippines ratifies that?
I believe it's important as a more than a symbol than really having an impact yet, because when I look at the energy situation in the Philippines, you have very low energy consumption, still far to go to achieve levels even of your neighboring countries. But I think it's very important that ratifying it means you're also serious into it and you will be part of this global partnership to agree on it. Yeah.
Now, one of the challenges in ratifying that agreement is in the agreement the Philippines will have to cut fossil fuel by, I think, 70% come, I think, a certain period in time, I think 2030 or something like that. And given that the Philippines has the highest electricity rates, I think in the region, I'm not sure if in the world, but definitely in the region, I mean, you have experts saying we are not ready to stop using coal. You know what I mean? Coal being the cheapest. Is there another alternative to coal?
Right now there are alternatives, of course. There are several. The ones we always hear are the renewable energy. You already use a big part of it in geothermal, the second largest geothermal generation or generator in the world, actually.
But then it's more expensive per kilowatt hour, at least here.
At least might be, but I think you make use of it. At least that's something which not many countries can do. Then you have hydropower. especially in Mindanao, in the southern region, like 50% of the power mix. But when it comes to the north, where you have like 80% of the power generation and consumption, then you have obviously more than 80% fossil fuel for electricity production. So the challenge will now be how fast can you actually replace coal and to still provide clean and cheap energy for the people with an extremely fast rising demand.
Yeah. So what would be the best alternative to coal that would be cheap, that would be environmentally safe?
Okay, then we go into the topic. In our view, as I'm representing Energy for Humanity, and as you can see on this chart, it's the #1 problem we have in the world for humanity is energy. And then we have water and food, and all the others come later. So if you want to have people prospering, then you need a lot of cheap and clean energy.
Yes. So we have that on graphics right now. We're showing it on screen. So you're saying, okay, go ahead, continue.
We need to look at all the available options to actually provide enough and increasingly more energy here in the Philippines, which is clean and hopefully becoming cheaper in the future, because as you say, the energy prices here are extremely high. They're second after Hong Kong, I believe, or Japan, maybe third right now. You improved the situation a bit in the last 2 years, I believe, but they are comparable with the electricity prices in France. Now you compare France with the Philippines, you know what I mean. I mean, the buying power there much higher.
Yeah.
Now, just talking about France, France has 90% or more than 90% clean electricity generation.
Really?
Why is that? Because they have nuclear power.
Are you serious? So you're telling me France is 90% clean power because it is nuclear?
Absolutely.
Okay, go ahead.
So they have hydropower, which they use as a pump storage as well. They have the mountains.
So there's no fossil fuel in France?
They have almost no fossil fuels for electricity production.
Amazing.
So it's basically meaningless.
Yes, yes.
The whole point is that France was able, within 14 years, 15 years, to actually increase the share of nuclear power to clean electricity production within 15 years to 80%. So 80% is nuclear power.
Would nuclear power be the best option for the Philippines?
Mid-long term it will be, in my view, because of you have a 100 million country, you have limited additional hydropower available, and you have geothermal already used quite a lot. When you want to use that more, it will become extremely expensive, I believe. So I would say it will need to be a mix. There will probably also be a place for solar power and wind power, especially in the north, where you have a windy region. Then you have to consider the transmission grid, how to transport energy down to the south, and I would assume it's probably best to use the wind energy in the north.
Okay, all right, let's show the next graphics that we have right now so that we have an understanding, I think, of the power mix in the Philippines and where nuclear would fit right in. Okay, so clearly you're saying the advantages of nuclear far outweigh the fears of people.
I would say in general with risk, the perception is not aligned with science or with facts. That's in general. We all know that when we sit in a car, to get from home to the airport by car is actually more dangerous than to sit in the plane.
Okay, all right. Explain this graphics. You have the Philippines right there, and you have Japan at #1. You mean, okay, that's
so this graph shows actually the electricity generation per capita, per person in the Philippines. So you see that the Philippines, with not even 800 kilowatt hours per capita, is actually below even India, which was actually shocking to me when I started to deep dive into the facts of the electricity situation here in the Philippines. And Vietnam, after leaving the communism 20 years ago, actually has more than double the generation. That means...
So what we're saying is Vietnam, which is a much smaller country than the Philippines, I mean in terms of population, is generating more power for the country than the Philippines is.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So I would assume that because of the strong growth rates in the economy you have now, your electricity demand and energy demand in general will massively increase now, and you will need to provide and always to cope with the shortfalls you have. And I think right now it's okay. I never really had a brownout experience so far here, but going forward you need to continuously add more power, and that's the big challenge. How fast can you add this big amount of power to the grid?
Okay, more power plants are coming into the Philippines. When President Aquino left, I think he signed 25 power plants, most of them coal.
Yes.
So that's the interesting part. Do you see it as a good sign that although the Philippines is trying to make up for its power needs, a bulk of it is in coal?
Yeah, that's the fastest and quickest you can obviously do. Obviously,
and cheapest.
You have some gas power as well. You have some fields out in the sea. These might be depleted by mid-20s, and how to replace that is the question. Do you have more resources available? I don't know. Gas is much cleaner than coal. Coal is also imported, so it's volatile, depending on the markets, of course. But coal is the fastest to build. The question is, overall, the question is, do you want clean or cheap energy? For the short term, it's clean or cheap. And if you have
but for
pressure,
the
long term, it needs to be both, clean and cheap.
And that would be nuclear?
That, in my view, will be nuclear.
Okay.
And I have the facts here to show.
Yes, all right. What are the advantages, let's start with nuclear energy, environmentally speaking?
Yeah, first of all, maybe I can show you this this little stick here. This is not thorium, but I wanted to show you a thorium stick, and it's like, that's the energy for a 4-person household which you need for a year with a modern 4th-generation molten salt reactor.
Okay.
Now then I have this bottle here with a dirty drink in it, just
with
to
soda.
exemplify, with soda.
Carbonated drink. Okay.
Carbonated drink. So if that would be the coal volume, this would actually just be enough for, you need 20 bottles per day of Coke in this volume compared to this for a year. So add this up, you will have more than 7,000 bottles which you need to actually feed in to burn the coal and to generate electricity.
I see.
So this is actually called energy density.
Yeah.
And that's a very important thing to understand in the current discussion. We actually rarely discuss this. When you look at it, when you want to have minimal impact on the environment and for the climate, you actually need energy-dense technology, especially in extremely urban areas like here in Manila.
Yeah, and nuclear would be extremely dense.
It would be extremely dense, or also current technology is already extremely dense. It has a minimal impact. Also regarding the waste, maybe, you have this little matchbox here. That's the matchbox which with current technology would actually just produce the high-level radioactive waste of 1 person for 60 years.
With nuclear?
I can't even give you an example how much you produce with coal. This is the minuscule waste you produce, high-level waste, in 60 years of electricity production, consumption of nuclear power, of current technology. Now, if you use this one here, with this for 1 year, this little welding rod, which would be thoriated in real life, then that would actually be by magnitudes lower. It would be like a fingertip.
Yeah. Okay. Now, when you mention nuclear energy, I mean, many Filipinos would say Fukushima. And then, you know, nuclear is out of the question.
Okay, Fukushima is obviously was an accident. It was a meltdown of reactors. It was caused by the earthquake, the tsunami flooded the plant.
Okay.
And then obviously the backup diesel generators couldn't cope with it. They were flooded, so they couldn't cool down anymore. Now, fact is, in Fukushima, no one died of radiation. And this was the wake-up call for many environmentalists, and I know hundreds of them by now, which changed their mind and became pro-nuclear. They say, if you want to cope with environmental issues and the energy challenge we have in the world, not just here, but in many other countries, and you want to protect the climate, you need nuclear as a mix. Even the International Panel of Climate Change is very clear in that sense. They say nuclear has to play a part, can play a part. It always depends on the specific situation per country.
All right, have you visited the Bataan nuclear power plant?
Unfortunately, I wasn't able yet to get there, but I will be back end of January and I will certainly visit it.
Okay, the reason I'm asking you this is the Bataan nuclear power plant, which the Filipino people have been paying for so long, but I think the Filipino people have finished paying for it, but it's a white elephant. It's never been used. I think it's been there more than 30 years. Can it still be used today?
It could certainly still be used.
Really?
There's an example in Wattsbar in the States where they actually also had a long delay, decades, and they went live this summer. So it is possible. It is a technology which is proven. It has a very good track record. It's a pressurized water reactor, by the way, for those who are following the reactor technologies. And it could go online, obviously, with just adding now the last final bit. The question is, do you want this technology now, or you want to go for newer technologies, let's say third generation? This is second generation.
I see. The BNPP.
The BNPP
is second generation.
And it's basically almost finished, but it never went online.
Yeah. So the third generation would be cheaper than running the second?
It should be cheaper, especially given now the scale which some countries like South Korea, China, and also Russia have in building new reactors so fast and quickly.
There's well, at least fear here in the Philippines when it comes to nuclear energy, but there are 440 nuclear reactors all over the world.
That's correct.
And I'm correct?
Yes.
And what are the accident rates of the 440?
The accident rate is, I would say, across all industries, including chemical plants, whatever you look at, is absolutely phenomenal. There's basically in the whole West, with the exclusion of Russia, which is obviously not counted to the West, zero death from radiation, from civil use of nuclear energy.
Okay.
In 60 years.
So nuclear energy have advantages of its low pollution?
Low pollution.
What are the greenhouse gas emissions from nuclear?
The greenhouse gas emissions are comparable with solar.
Oh, really?
With solar energy. It's about
in the
same.
level of
actually,
solar?
sorry to say, it's actually lower. It's actually about onshore wind.
Really? Okay. And then, of course, operating costs are low.
I have a chart on this here on the CO2 emissions. And you see actually that solar PV is like 10 times higher. It's very low, all of them, of the renewables, including nuclear, which I would call, these are all clean energy technologies down here. And you see nuclear is very bottom. And these are credible sources for nuclear, includes everything from building, production, until to decommission the whole plant.
Okay. Now, President Duterte has said that we may not see nuclear energy during his term. Of course, he wants a lot of studies. He wants it, he wants it carefully planned. He's, of course, cautious about disasters. Do you think he's well informed?
I think it's very important, as he said, you need to study it well. You need to understand all the facts. I think we can do some more there. I would say,
although
I hope my talk this morning will help.
Open.
The Energy Secretary in September, when he was in Bataan and I heard the press conference, he was open to it and he was absolutely right. Nuclear energy in the Philippines will be the cheapest source of energy. It's very clear in a deregulated market with basically no subsidies. Then nuclear energy, because of its high power density, including all the security measures which make it costly to build it, but once it's built, the maintenance is very low. Also, the resource you need, because of the power density, the energy density, you need only very small amounts of resource of uranium or thorium in the future, hopefully. Then that's actually the big, that makes you energy independent. So I would say mid-long term, what I feel is the Philippines, like other countries in the region, like Vietnam, Cambodia, Thailand, even Bangladesh, and others, they all go for nuclear energy now. They build now the programs with help from several countries.
Yeah. Would you consider it to be more reliable and more proficient than fossil fuel?
It actually has a higher capacity factor, That always depends, obviously, on how you maintain it, but usually it should be up to 90%.
Yeah. And you would put nuclear under renewables?
I would put it, renewable is a term which we could discuss.
Yeah.
There's actually no such thing than renewable, because you always, the sun will, in a billions of years also, basically not exist anymore. But let's call it clean tech.
Okay.
Because also nuclear, you could actually add it to renewables, because if you can extract the uranium out of the seawater, then you have endless resource. Same for thorium. Thorium is 3 to 4 times more abundant than uranium.
And this would be thorium?
This is just exemplary, because in Switzerland I couldn't get a thorium rod. It's basically a tungsten thoriated welding rod about this size.
Okay.
With a very small diameter, and this is very energy dense.
All right. Now, the concerns when it comes to nuclear energy, the environmental impact. All right. Questions are the process of mining and refining uranium hasn't been clean.
Okay, so again, mining for uranium is of course something you look at, but in my view, the way they do it now, I'm not an expert into that mining part, but it's actually very clean and state-of-the-art. Now, compared to coal, as you see, the amount of resource you need is so small that this is actually adding to the very good and low CO2 emissions, because you only need this small amount of resource. So for me, the mining part, of course, it needs to be considered, is important as it is, but don't forget, for solar and wind, you also have mining operations.
You do?
And you actually need a lot of coal power to produce solar panels. That's always forgotten, especially in the Western countries.
You need a lot of coal?
You need
to
a lot of coal
solar panels?
Exactly. You need
to produce the panel?
That's true. How else do you want to run the chemical processes? You need heat. Heat comes from coal today. But there's a reason why China is also exploring high-temperature nuclear reactors. Because they can produce process heat in a clean way.
Okay. Now, when it comes to radioactive waste disposal, this is a concern for some.
Yes, it is a concern, and it should be a concern, but I haven't seen any other waste which is so properly contained like nuclear waste. It's always controlled, so the radioactivity can't go away. So if you replace fuel, burnt, it's called used fuel or burnt used fuel in the reactor, in this fuel pellet, then you actually take it out and you put it into a pool of water to cool it down.
But Urs, what do you do, for example, they say as a rule, a nuclear power plant will create 20 metric tons of nuclear fuel per year. Okay, so that's a lot of nuclear waste. What do you do with that?
Now, if you compare that to coal, which then mostly evaporates, or not even evaporating would be nice, but it goes out into the air. That's minuscule, because it's a very dense material.
Meaning it's controlled.
It's very controlled, it's very dense. 20 metric tons is not a big, it's the size of a house, you know, of a big house, not more than that.
Yeah, a year.
And that's not the problem. You can actually store that, and it's controlled.
Yeah.
And it's not radiating.
All right. Okay, we'll continue our conversation after this short break. Hot Copy will be right back.